Today, we're going to talk about the amazing world of beekeeping. And while it's a super popular hobby right now, our relationship with bees, well, that story goes back thousands and thousands of years.
So, first things first, you've definitely seen a picture like this before, right? The famous bee beard. But have you ever stopped to wonder how in the world this is even possible? How do you convince thousands of tiny, stinging insects to just calmly hang out on your face? Is it some kind of superpower?
Well, the secret is actually surprisingly simple. It all comes down to one single very important bee, the queen. You see, the beekeeper puts her in a tiny little cage right under their chin. All the other bees, the worker bees, are instinctively drawn to her unique scent, and they'll just cluster all around her. And just like that, you get this incredible and, yeah, slightly terrifying living beard.
Of course, most beekeepers aren't out there trying to wear bee beards. For them, it's a hobby. And let me tell you, it's a challenging one. It gets compared to gardening a lot. I mean, sure, you could just go buy a tomato from the store, but a tomato you grew yourself, it just tastes so much better. It's the exact same thing with honey. The reward of tasting fresh honey straight from your very own hive, it's just something else.
But this whole modern hobby thing, it's really just the latest chapter in a very, very long story. Our connection with bees isn't something we measure in decades. We're talking millennia. So let's zoom out for a minute and take a look at how this ancient partnership even began. Our story with bees goes back way farther than you'd probably guess. We're talking 6,000-year-old cave paintings that show people hunting for wild honey. The ancient Egyptians, they were the first to really start managing bees. Even the great philosopher Aristotle wrote a whole book about beekeeping. And the modern beehive that we all recognize today, yeah, that's only been around for about 150 years. Pretty crazy, right? Those Egyptians were just incredibly clever. They figured out that bee swarms would happily set up shop in man-made spaces. So they started creating the very first artificial hives out of stuff like terracotta pipes and hollowed-out logs. They even learned how to use smoke to calm the bees down, which let them harvest the honey without wrecking the whole colony. They were the original beekeepers. But, for most of history, we didn't really get bee biology. Not at all. And what happens when people don't understand something? They tend to make up some pretty wild stories. Before we had the science, we had a whole lot of myth and magic surrounding these incredible insects. Okay, so this was one of the most popular myths, and it's stuck around forever. Even brilliant minds like Aristotle wrote it down. The belief was that if you buried a dead ox, a swarm of bees would just magically appear from its carcass. Now, look, if you leave a dead animal out, you are absolutely going to get a lot of insects, just not the honey-making kind. And then there was something called tinging. The idea was, if you saw a swarm of bees flying through the air, you'd run out of your house with pots and pans and just start banging them together. People thought the noise would magically make the bees land. The reality? Well, honeybee swarms don't really travel that far to begin with. All that banging just let your neighbors know that you saw the swarm first. It was basically just calling dibs. For centuries over in Europe, the standard beehive was this straw basket called a skep. Super easy to make, but the way they harvested the honey was, well, it was brutal. At the end of the summer, you'd find the heaviest skep, the one that did the best work, and you'd hold it over a sulfur fire. The fumes would kill the entire colony. So your most productive, hardest working bees were literally punished with death. It was completely unsustainable. This destructive cycle went on for thousands of years, until someone finally noticed a tiny but absolutely crucial detail about how bees behave. It was a discovery so important it would completely revolutionize our relationship with them. This was the secret of bee space. So what in the world is bee space? It's the simple idea that no matter where bees build their hive, whether it's in a hollow tree or a box we make for them, they always leave a very specific, precise gap between their honeycombs. It's just enough room for them to work and move around. Think of it as their own natural hallway. And that magic number? It's 3/8 of an inch. That's it. That one tiny measurement is the key that unlocked our ability to finally, truly cooperate with bees, instead of just trying to control them. And let me tell you, this concept is everything. If a beekeeper builds a hive and the gaps are too big, the bees will just build extra comb in there, making a huge, sticky mess. If the space is too small, they'll seal it up with this resin called propolis, basically gluing the whole hive shut. But if you get it just right,
3/8 of an inch. They use it as a hallway, and you end up with a perfect, manageable hive.
So understanding bee space was the foundation for the entire modern beekeeping revolution. It allowed us to finally design a hive that works with the bees' natural instincts, not against them. The movable frame hive changed the whole game. Now, a beekeeper can just slide out a single frame to check on the queen, look for any diseases, and see how much honey they've got, all without destroying the hive. You can harvest the honey without killing the colony. It's such a better system that it's now actually illegal in many places to keep bees in those old-fashioned hives where you can't even inspect the frames. But even with our modern, more respectful approach, it's really important to remember perspective. As one beekeeper put it, imagine a giant tearing the roof off your house and just starting to rearrange all your furniture. Yeah, you'd probably get a little irritated too. Which kind of leaves us with a final thought, right? In this 6,000-year-old relationship, we've gone from being honey hunters to clumsy keepers to now something more like partners. But from the bees' perspective, we are and we always will be giant invaders. So the real question is, how can we be good ones?